We forgot the first opening one though, so.
Oh, yeah.
Other than that last little
I'll try again. It's the dust jacket.
Take the dust jacket off.
Oh my god. I read with the dust jacket on. Don't come for me.
Okay, now we can go back to that last statement. You read with the dust jacket on?
Yeah, how else am I supposed to bookmark?
Oh my god, with a bookmark.
No, with the dust jacket.
Oh god.
Have you never bookmarked with a dust jacket?
Okay, so you know how you did the whole, here's the things
book
that
crimes?
I do. Yeah, here's the book crime. You need to add that to the list.
I didn't know that reading with a dust jacket was such a crime.
It's a book crime. It's a book crime.
Like, and then when I'm on this page, I do this.
No, you're not gonna make it any better.
And
not gonna make it any better.
It's like exciting when I get more than halfway through the book because I switched to the back half of the dust jacket. I read with the dust jacket on. Don't come for me.
It's too late. I came.
You what?
I hate you.
Can that be the intro bit?
No, it cannot.
Hello, and welcome to Young Adult Reviews, where two youngish adults review books meant for much younger adults.
Or children.
I'm Chloe.
And I'm Honor, and this week we are discussing the Warcross Duology by Marie Lu, and if you haven't read it yet, here's the spoiler warning.
All right, I don't think we have any content warnings for this episode, so we're just going to get right into it.
Very exciting. All right, so the book starts out with Amika Chen, who is an 18-year-old bounty hunter living in the version of a near-future New York City. She hunts cyber criminals that the police don't have time for, and she's 3 months behind on her rent. She's in a rough spot and about to be evicted.
After a rough day and missing out on her bounty, Amika heads home defeated. She concedes herself to a night of ignorant bliss by watching the Warcross Championship opening ceremony, a stunning next-level virtual reality game generated by a console called the Neuralink that took the world by storm a decade before.
Amika accidentally glitches into the opening ceremony after trying to steal a rare power-up to sell for real money. Her anonymity is compromised.
Freaking out, Amika logs off for the night and tries to sleep it off. She has a criminal record, but this is nothing like she's ever faced before.
Amika wakes up in the morning to dozens of missed calls and texts. It's Henka Games, manufacturer of the Neuralink and Warcross, and they want to fly her to Tokyo to offer her a job. Outside her apartment are dozens of press and paparazzi. Amika has become an overnight online sensation.
On the flight to Tokyo, we get a little bit of Amika's backstory. Her father died of cancer when she was young, and she was drifting purposeless through life in a foster home until she heard a radio interview of Hideo Tanaka, the creator of the Neuralink and Warcross, at just 11 years old. He's her hero, and she's on a plane to go meet him.
Amika's criminal record comes from her defending a girl whose nudes got leaked. She tracked down the info on everyone who spread her nudes and leaked their information to the dark web, and was expelled and forbidden from touching a computer for 2 years.
In Tokyo, Amika meets with Hideo. He's only 21, but he's a sexy billionaire. Hideo explains to Amika that they are looking for a hacker called Zero, named as such because all he leaves behind in the code is the number 0. He might be trying to sabotage the world championships with cyber terrorism. Amika impresses Hideo with her coding skills, and she's hired on the spot with the promise of $10 million and entered into the Warcross championships as a wild card.
Amika is the first pick of the draft to the Phoenix Riders. She quickly fits in with her teammates Hamilton Hammy Jimenez, Roshan Amadi, and her captain Asher Wing. The Riders also have another wild card, Renard Thomas, and their primary enemy is Tremaine Blackburn of the Demon Brigade, as both Russian's ex and an ex-member of the Riders.
Amika realizes that Ren is hiding something under his encryption and follows him to the Dark World, where she finds him placing bets with a mysterious figure in black armor. The numbers are coordinates for attacks against Henka Games. She reports this information to Hideo, and during these information sessions, their relationship blossoms.
Amika's team wins their first match against the Demon Brigade, and she recovers a file from Ren. Right when she figures out what it means, someone makes an attempt on Hideo's life.
Hideo's alright, and he invites Amika to his home where he spills on his tragic backstory as they get cozy in a hot spring. His brother Sasuke was kidnapped when they were young, and his grieving mother and father have steadily declined in health since then. Everything Hideo does is for Sasuke, and he is tired of the horrors in the world. He drops her back off at her home, and they smooch.
In the next championship match, Zero offers Amika a chance to work with him. Amika rejects him, so he leaks a picture of her and Hideo kissing. Not only that, when she returns home, Zero appears and her teammates get bombed.
Hideo cuts Amika and Ren from the team. He says it's too dangerous to keep them both in. Amika won't take no for an answer, though. She's close to cracking this case and turns to her teammates for help.
Tremaine gives Amika some info. It turns out he was another bounty hunter hired by Hideo. The artifacts the players try to get have been rigged by Zero, presumably to do something horrible.
Her teammates help Amika back into the final championship game with some illegal power-ups from the Dark World. Amika comes close to stopping the rigged artifacts, but she is too late. Zero tells her that she's on the wrong side. This whole time, he was trying to stop Hideo.
Amika interrogates Hideo, and he tells her that the new version of the Neuralink lenses will enable him to influence users' minds. With this, he will end all aggression and crime, including an algorithm he constructed.
Amika is horrified that he has dared to play God like this. She leaves and tells him that she will be stopping him no matter what.
Amika scans the data from the last moments of the championship game when Zero was visible and finds his identity. It is Sasuke Tanaka, Hideo's long-lost brother. Zero messages her, saying that he is ready to work with her when she is.
Book 2 opens with Amika walking down the streets of Tokyo when she gets a message from Zero. 2 assassins are coming for her. With only a little time to act, a young but highly trained assassin named Jax appears, who transports Amika to a hotel.
Amika is introduced to a group called the Blackcoats, presumably led by Zero, aka Sasuke. The other two members are Jax and Dr. Dana Taylor. They tell her that in order to gain control of Hideo's algorithm, she needs to get close to him to get inside of his mind on the day of the closing ceremony, when all of the beta Neuralink lenses will update to include Hideo's new algorithm.
Amika wastes no time getting to work. Zero shows her how to exploit someone's mind once she gets inside of it via the Neuralink, and in the process, she uncovers one of Sasuke's memories. Zero seems detached from Sasuke as a person, as if he is all machine without any humanity. He doesn't even care about Hideo anymore.
She contacts Tremaine to investigate a symbol she got from Sasuke's memory. In the meantime, Hideo's algorithm is causing the suicide of innocent people that have lost purpose due to the way their brains are being manipulated.
Tremaine reports that the symbol from Sasuke's memory is from the Japanese Institute of Innovative Technology, the same place that Hideo's mother worked before Sasuke was taken from her. Amika sets up a time to investigate with Tremaine, but he never shows. She goes on her own, just in time to see Zero walk through a wall and see Jax shoot Tremaine point blank in the head. Uh-oh.
Jax corners Amika before anyone else can find her. She tells her she hit Tremaine with a glancing blow and shows Amika Sasuke's memories.
He was a terminally ill but genius child who was entered into Taylor's study as a chance to extend his life. She wanted to extend it, all right, by turning him into pure data and discarding his body. When Sasuke's mother pulled him from the study, Taylor pulled him from his family by kidnapping him.
Sasuke had to let go of everything he loved before ultimately dying and being transferred into pure data.
Jax believes that Sasuke is still inside Zero somewhere. Amika has to draw him out.
Amika meets up with Hideo and tells him everything she knows. She needs his cooperation to help pull Sasuke out of Zero's data. They fuck on a yacht, finally. Why do I let you write these?
Because I'm funny. Alright, it's game time now. On the day of the closing ceremony, the beta lenses start to patch with the algorithm, and everyone freezes. Taylor tries to take control of the algorithm, but Hideo wills her to die using the power of the Neuralink. Then Zero grabs control of the algorithm. Amika activates a hack before being knocked unconscious and transported to the Institute.
Jax helps Amika and Hideo escape from Zero's grasp. They hide in a panic room, and Amika contacts her teammates for one last game of Warcross inside Zero's mindscape. Sasuke is still in there, and they intend to find him.
Zero enters Amika's mind, but she pulls an Uno reverse card and enters his mind instead, giving him his memories back and to return to humanity. After a touching reunion with Hideo, Sasuke disappears and the police take Amika and Hideo into custody.
During the trial, Jax takes the fall with the Blackcoats for Hideo's algorithm. Hideo gets off with a relatively light charge of manslaughter with house arrest.
Amika is contacted by the new CEO of Henka Games with a job offer of rebuilding the Neuralink. She accepts and visits Hideo in prison. She wants him to help with the creative input.
A news article snippet at the end of the book reveals that Amika becomes the CEO of Henka Games, and she and Hideo maintain their relationship despite every odd. The end.
Honor, what did you think about this book? These books?
Okay, I'm gonna be honest. I loved them.
Good! I'm glad you loved them. What did you like about them?
Okay, first of all, there's like constant action, which is one of my like favorite things. It keeps me invested. Even like on the slow moments, there's still a push in the storyline and the plot and what's happening or in the relationship of the characters. So it was constantly, there's things going on in the book, and I felt very invested. Like, I didn't want to put the book down. I loved it. Especially my favorite part was the Warcross games themselves. It was the most interesting part of the book, and I will say it, I am mad there wasn't more. I am mad.
Yeah, the second book really, it doesn't have a whole lot of Warcross playing. There's like the one Dark Cross game that Amika plays with Zero, and then it's the last game inside of Zero's Mindscape, of course.
Yes, and I think it's really interesting how it kind of adapted to the more mental sides of things instead of the game itself, but I missed the game itself. Like it's just it was top-notch quality right there. What can I say?
Yeah, I agree. You already probably know what I'm going to say about this because Marie Lu is like my favorite author. Anytime she comes out with a book, she's my auto buy author. And anytime she comes out with something, I have to buy it immediately. Honestly, the way that she writes is a feast for the senses. I love the way that she described every single Warcross match. I think the first world that they played in the championships was definitely my favorite, the ice world. And
Yes.
I also like her Easter eggs that she puts into her other novels that you might not have read, but The One-Eyed White Wolf was, of course, I don't know, of course, but if I were her, I would have done this. It was a reference to The Young Elites, where the main character, Adelina, is known as the White Wolf, and she only has one eye. So there was like a one-eyed white wolf in the ice stage that burst out of the ice, which I think is so cool. And also, another Easter egg, because Legend was Marie Lu's big series, I guess. That's the one that gets the most hype and recognition. I think it's worth mentioning that Warcross takes place in the same universe, the Luniverse, if you will. That was a bad joke.
Mhm.
Um, Warcross takes place in the same universe, just nearer to present day, whereas Legend takes place way in the future. And Asher Wing is Day's ancestor.
No way.
Yes way! I love it.
That's
Anyway,
so cool.
I love Marie Lu. I love the way she writes. Her relationships between characters just mwah, mwah. Chef's kiss, perfect. Hideo and Amika, literally name a better couple. You probably can. They have their issues.
She's
You
like,
probably
actually,
can.
don't name any.
Actually, I take it back. I take it back. But they're a very. I know last week for Divergent we were talking about this, and it's like Tris and Four are like a very real couple in that they're bad for each other, but Amika and Hideo have their struggles, but they're still good for each other. And I think that it's real in that way, that they're not perfect and they butt heads on a lot of things, but they still love each other.
Yeah, it's
And
so cute
that's
when someone in the relationship tries to take over the entire world just casually, you know?
we can
And the other
ignore
one's like,
Hideo going
actually.
we can ignore Hideo going like Yagami for a second. We can do that. It's fine.
And she's like, you know what? It's just a flaw. We can get past this. I will admit, I had not read any Marie Lu books before you brought them up to me because you were the reason I read the Young Elite series, like, what, 3 months ago now?
Something like that.
Yeah, and I really enjoy them. They're very good. I'd never heard of her before this point, and after reading this book, I'm like, how did I not know? It's so
Right?
good.
Oh my God, she's totally wonderful. And if you're the type of person that looks at the back for recommendations, some of her book friends include Lee Bardugo, author of Six of Crows, Sabah Tahir, author of An Ember in the Ashes, both very popular books on Book Talk, but this is not. I couldn't tell you why. Marie Lu makes these wonderful, diverse casts of characters, and
Mm-hmm.
all of them interact in such different dynamics. It's so, so fucking good. Who was your favorite character? Let's talk about that.
Honestly, Hammy was. She was just like the ultimate best friend you could have, but she was also like all of the characters are extremely well rounded in their own ideals and stuff. So it's interesting to see that like they have fully fleshed characters for each of these side characters. So I loved how quick and smart she was, and I loved just how friendly and open she was. And she was like, "Hey, I'm going to use my past experiences and tell you what I learned from them because I can see that you're trying to do the same mistakes that I made. And I think I can help you through this a little bit better if you listen to me," kind of thing. And it was really great to see just how she opened up, and she got Amika to open up that way too. It was amazing. I love her so much.
I agree. Hammy was such a wonderful character because you also see what she's like when she loses patience.
Mhm.
Because there's this moment before the bombing and after Amika's relationship with Hideo gets forcibly thrown out into the public eye. Hammy basically tells her, "Do you think that you're better than us?" Not asking for help. "Do you think that you're better than us?" And of course, Amika's like, "No, no, I don't think that at all." And Hammy says, "Well, that's the image that you're putting out right now. You think that you're better than us." And then, like, the whole building explodes or whatever.
That's my favorite part because that's literally what I was just talking about is that Hemi is like, I learned from my mother that, giving out help but not accepting it is saying that you are better than them because you are not willing to accept the help that they would give you. So she turns that to Amika and she's like, "Do you think that you are better than us because you're not accepting our help? Because that's what you're telling us with your actions."
At the same time, it wasn't entirely hostile because she's like, I want to be your friend. Let us in, kind of thing.
No, it was fully out of care.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think there's like this saying that we are just a mosaic of everyone who has touched our lives.
That is my favorite saying.
Right? And I think that it's so beautifully illustrated in this book. Because, of course, we have Amika, who's kind of this deeply damaged character. Her father died at a young age, her mother left her when she was young. She grew up poor, fending for herself. She doesn't have a whole lot except for herself to rely on, but she still forms these strong attachments to her father's memory, and she very much finds herself also defending the weak. So she forms these strong attachments, and that's really all she has. And by the end of the book, she's this changed person because of who she's met and because of who she's interacted with. My favorite character was probably Tremaine Blackburn.
I really liked his little story arc.
Oh my god, I loved his character arc. He kind of got like the redemption arc treatment.
Not that he needed it, but yeah.
He didn't really need it. He was just kind of like, it was just a bad breakup for him. He was the ex.
Also, like, I feel like a lot of people reading this would hold it against him that he was like so aggressive at the beginning, but it's like they're literally on opposite teams, and that's just natural.
Not to mention all the bad blood between him and Roshan, because later it explains that the reason why he left the Phoenix Riders and broke up with Roshan was because Roshan comes from a very high class background, Tremaine comes from a very low class background, similar to Amika, and he started taking pills to keep up with the rest of his team. And his mother is a drug addict, and one day overdosed and had to go to the hospital. And Roshan's father was telling him, oh, it was only a matter of time until he followed his mother. So of course you would leave on bad terms. He's this amazingly human character, and it's like, yeah, I see why you would act like that, man. But then in the end, he still makes up with Roshan, and they get back together, and it's very cute. And he also knows when is best to step in and be helpful, and he also knows when it's good to step out.
That's the best thing is like every single one of Marie's characters are real. Like you can understand where they're coming from, why they are making the decisions that they make because of that past and that history. It's really amazing to read about.
Just these vivid Technicolor fucking characters. So good. So incredibly good. Okay, so as we know, the main villain, I guess villain is the word for this. The main villain is Hideo Tanaka, tries to go a little light Yagami on the world. Hideo Tanaka, Japanese genius, tries to play God. What do you think about his motives as a villain as you were reading them? Because you told me that as you were reading the book, you didn't trust him, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Yeah. No, literally, okay, because they're like sitting there and okay, first of all, let's just start from the beginning, okay? This stems from my first Marie Lou read, which was Young Elites. Which I'm sure we'll go over eventually, but there's this whole thing where you think the love interest is the love interest, but actually he's just a manipulative little whiny baby. And so instantly, as soon as they had that really great connection, I was like, I don't trust him. He's using her. I just know it. And I was right. I was right.
Okay, well, here's what I would argue. I would argue that he genuinely believed that Amika might be on his side if he explained it correctly.
Yeah, well, if he explained it in a way that would have kind of manipulated her ideas of it, yes. But I think if you're not able to be open and honest about the full reasons why, there's a problem.
Right, it's like,
You
you
can't
might not be doing the best thing if you can't tell the whole truth.
Exactly. If you can't admit it fully what's happening, what you're doing to someone, and you know that they're not gonna agree with you, then you know that you're doing a wrong thing. You know that it's bad. Cut it out. And he knew full well. I do think other than that whole, thing, the idea came from good reasons, which was he like wanted to protect people. But the idea is like Amika said, you can't take away people's free will and stuff like that just because of one little thing that happened. And like, yes, you could prevent all of these horrible things from happening, but you're also literally controlling every single person. You're taking away their free will and power.
Yeah, I would agree, because his whole reasoning was the algorithm is an unbiased source, and Amika was like, well, who controls the algorithm? And he's like, don't talk to me about that. He like doesn't answer her question, which is so funny. Who controls the algorithm, Hideo? And he's just like, I don't know, you tell me.
The thing that was interesting is I wonder how he would have reacted if it was used on him rather than him using it on others.
Oh,
What
of
do you
course he wouldn't have liked it.
Exactly. So he knows very well what he's doing is not okay, and he's doing it anyway.
But then
And
that kind of loops back around to the fact that he invented the algorithm in large part to look for Sasuke because he still believed that he was alive and out there.
hmm But here's the thing. I think, with all of his brains and his smarts, there's a much better algorithm that he could have made to use as a search function than
Control F Sasuke
control
Tanaka.
than to control every single person in the world, you know?
Mm-hmm.
He could have done the same ideas because his whole goal wasn't even to just get rid of all the horrible things of the world. It was to find Sasuke and to find the people who kidnapped him. He literally could have found a better way that didn't control the entire world and manipulate it to find him, but he didn't. He chose to do it this way. Makes for a great dramatic story. I loved it, but not okay.
Yeah, something I really liked about Hideo's character was his overwhelming need for control. He had to have every aspect of his life so incredibly carefully curated in order for him to be kind of comfortable, I guess. He was very big on routine. Like when he and Mika went out to that one restaurant, trade information, he's like, oh yeah, just one day out of every month, in the first week of every month, I get this restaurant all to myself for business dealings, but I'm going to use it to take you on a date, kind of, which was very hot. Oh my god, Hideo, excellent man written by a woman.
Oh, he
Uh,
had moves and he was very smooth about them.
he was smooth.
hmm
Hideo. Mm. That couch scene where they shared the link with each other and started to make out.
hmm
Oh my god, this was so spicy.
No, it wasn't.
It wasn't spicy, but it was pretty steamy.
It was very steamy.
What were we talking about before I went off on this tangent?
We were talking about Hideo's control.
Right. Yeah, and I feel like in order to realize that what he was doing was wrong, he needed to lose control and be like, oh shit, did I do that? Because Amika kind of has this revelation towards the end of the conflict in book 2, where after Hideo kills Dr. Dana Taylor, who of course is the person who kidnapped Sasuke, and Zero takes control of the algorithm, she realizes that Zero always meant for Hideo to kill Dr. Taylor, but to an extent, it was Sasuke wanting him to do that because that would be the only way to make him see that he has lost control. Because in his effort to gain all this control and to have everything carefully curated around him, he needed to realize that in doing that, he had lost control, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I kind of differ from that. I think he knew from the start that it was wrong and he just wasn't allowing himself to accept that idea
Mm-hmm.
because he started to know it was wrong when Amika started challenging him. Or he started to accept the idea that it was wrong when Amika started challenging him at it. She's like, there are people that are committing suicide that are not bad people. They are innocent people, and you know this. And he's
Mm-hmm.
like, are they innocent if they were murderers and all of these kind of bad people? That's not on me, that's just them. And you can see him brushing aside the idea because he doesn't want to pay attention to all of that. So I think he knew from the start that it was bad. I think he was just so focused on the outcome that he wanted that he didn't care to acknowledge it.
I would agree with that, for sure, for sure. There is something that I'd like to discuss. I feel like tonally, the second book was a whole lot different than book 1. Wildcard was a lot different than
Warcross?
Warcross.
Yeah. I agree. It was very different vibes because it turned into sorting out the mystery of everything that happened in the first book rather than or everything that happened, I guess, in the history of the people in the first book rather than going through just this amazing new world and landscape that they have and stuff like that. I mean, I guess both have mystery elements to it because you're trying to solve a problem that's going on, like who is Zero and where is he coming from? And then it becomes, okay, we know who Zero is, but how did he become this? And why does he no longer care about his brother? And how do we solve everything from going wrong?
Mm-hmm. I would argue that definitely the first book is more of a mystery, and the second book is more of a thriller with mystery aspect.
Yeah, but I just find the actual Warcross games so thrilling that to me the first book's the thriller because that's all in there, and this one doesn't have as many exciting moments like that. It's all normal book moments where it's like, they got murdered, or they're in a fight again, or she got kidnapped.
This was my This was my reread, of course. I've already read Warcross, and oh my god, it did not hurt any less when Tremaine got shot in the head.
But you knew he was gonna live.
It still hurt.
I was like, oh, he's dead. That's brutal.
Okay,
Oh
what did
well.
you think? What did you think about Jax's character?
I loved Jax's character. I think it was very awful, the childhood that she had to live through where it was constantly fear and terror, but I think she took that and used all of that trauma and that past that she had to turn herself into a good person. I mean, as much of a good person as she could be given the circumstances, because she chose the path that led. She had her own ideas of morality, which were, I know that my mother is not a good person, and I know that Amika can help kind of solve this, so I'm going to turn against my mother and I'm going to help her as much as I can, kind of thing. And so, while she wasn't a good person because, she had to murder a lot of people, she's an assassin, I think she had a lot of very good qualities about her, so I liked her a lot. What
Yeah,
about you?
it kind of sucks how she didn't get absolved of all her crimes because she was put up to it by her adoptive mother, Dana Taylor. Because, okay, I have kind of mixed feelings about Jax because she was very suddenly introduced in the second book and then she quickly became a main player.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, because as a character, she solved a lot of problems that would have otherwise been totally impossible for Amika to get out of. Like, at the end, she's the person that Hideo's sentencing totally hinges on. Like, without her, Hideo would have gone away for life. Easy. But she took that on her shoulders and she ended the organization. She outed all these terrible people and she's like, bye, go into prison. Oh, and we kind of glossed over this in the summary, but Sasuke and Jax were in love with each other. They were very young and it was kind of
Mm-hmm.
puppy love, but they still loved each other nonetheless. And it was that love that A, drove Sasuke to continue with the testing because he didn't want Jax to take his place, and B, drove Jax to ask Amika for help in finding Sasuke within Zero's code.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think, more than anything, I feel like this story is about how love can drive us to do incredible and terrifying things. Hideo does his evil plot out of like his love for Sasuke, but Amika stops him out of her love for Hideo. The whole thing with Jax and Sasuke and the love for camaraderie between teammates, everyone is just so full of love. And sometimes it makes us do bad things, but I don't know where I'm going with this.
That's okay.
I have a lot of feelings about this book. I have a lot of feelings.
So I was curious, since this is a reread for you, what are some other things that you like picked up on that you may have missed before or like felt different with the reread?
I will say, I went in knowing that Hideo was the bad guy, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And unlike you, on my first read through, it's like the end of a chapter when Zero like looks at Amika and he's like, I'm trying to stop Hideo. And the first time I read it, I was like clutching my pearls. I was like, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my god, what do you mean you're trying to stop Hideo? So that was a very wonderful
That's
twist the first time I read it.
that's what happens when you don't have trust issues.
Yeah,
I trust no one, not even characters.
I read through it this time though, and I was like, yeah, he's a bad dude doing some bad stuff, but god damn, he's a sexy billionaire. And he and Amika were good for each other, I'll say it. I don't think
To a point.
the biggest problem was their moral quandaries. But as we see in the end, they work it out. They work it out. They put aside their differences. And Hideo realizes that what he did was wrong. And he says, I'm sorry. Because it's so easy to forget. He may have all this money and he may have all this power, but he is young. I
20.
am 21 years old.
He's 20. He's an adult.
No, he's an adult,
He
but
knows right from wrong at this point, which means he knew damn well that that was wrong.
But I feel like, because Hideo invented the Neuralink at the age of 11 in the story, right?
Mm-hmm.
And immediately from then, like, took the world by storm. To get all this power and money and recognition at such a young age, and to carry that with you before your frontal cortex is fully developed would probably give anyone a god complex, is all I'm
Facts.
saying.
Facts.
So while he's still like this, he's this very powerful man, but at the same time he's young, and I think he overestimates his abilities and what he should be able to do just because of the recognition that he's been afforded by his invention. So I don't think we can entirely blame him. I think he was a little mentally ill, love.
I fully think we can blame him because he knew what he was doing. He knew.
He knew what he was doing, but he didn't want to acknowledge it because of his god complex, dude.
And therefore, he can be held accountable because he knowingly avoided that idea.
But then he says, I'm sorry.
And you fall head over heels. You are just as bad as the rest of the world.
No, because he and Amika are so cute together.
They can
How
be
can I?
cute together, but that doesn't make it any less wrong.
He went to house arrest for it. It's
Oh,
fine.
that's gonna be so harsh for a billionaire with
He
a
had to do it.
mansion.
He had to do. They had to do it to him.
He's
He would have
probably
gotten.
got like a freaking bowling alley and theater and like the freaking World's Fair in his house, okay? He's not gonna be any problem with house arrest.
All I'm saying is that in
Also,
real
they didn't ban
prison,
him from computers.
they probably did. No, because Amika
They
has a
should
line where
have.
Amika has a line where she's like, "You probably won't be able to like do any coding or like touch a computer, but I would like your creative input." In reference to rebuilding the Neuralink, of course. Because overall, the Neuralink wasn't just used for Warcross. The Neuralink wasn't just used for Warcross. It was
That's
used
true.
for teaching children in war-torn areas, translations in everyday life. It replaced the modern GPS. It was so integral to every facet of society. And you're telling me that you wouldn't develop a god complex if you developed that technology at the age of 11?
You can develop a god complex all you want, but even gods have karma.
Damn, that was kind of deep, bestie.
Thank you.
Yeah, it did come back to bite him in the ass, and
Yeah,
I'm
it
sure that
did.
he's still paying for it, but
In his mansion where he gets to stay.
with his very hot girlfriend, his very hot genius now billionaire girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
But another thing that I love about their relationship is that he was totally attracted to her intellect.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he ever once mentioned like how hot she was or how sexy. He was just like, "You are brilliant," and I don't think there's anything sexier than that.
He didn't mention it, but that one scene where she goes to the like party thing and she's in the dress and he just stops and stares at her for a second before the shock kicks in, you just know he was looking her all the way up and down. You know.
Oh my god, he totally was. But
He
he would never
totally
say
was.
that.
He would
He would
never
never
say that
say
because
that.
he's a gentleman.
Well, I don't think he would have fallen in love with her if she was just beautiful, you know? I think it's because
Well, no, because he had girls hanging all over him that were just beautiful.
Of course, but Amika was not like other girls. I love her. Okay, and also can we talk about the wonderful Asian American representation that Marie Lu has in almost all of her fucking works?
Can we talk about all of the representation? There was so much. Like they had
We have disabled characters, we have
Mhm.
gay characters, we have
Mhm.
non-binary characters,
Mhm.
we have characters of every race.
Mhm.
Like, it's so amazing how it's just so seamlessly integrated in there, and no one bats an eye. I think that shows how easy it is, but some authors just don't want to put in the work and try.
Facts. Also, I liked that there wasn't a lot of like racism represent like in the books. It was all like we are equal, like this is just normal. Like as it
Right.
should be in the world.
No, because a lot of authors, not that this was like a fantasy book, it was like a sci-fi book,
But
but a
it's
lot
also
of
a
authors
futuristic one.
exactly, like they'll put people of color in their worlds and they'll add problems about like racism. And it's like, why can't they just exist to exist?
Mhm.
Why do you have to?
And
Because
that's
racism,
not
of course, is like an important thing to make commentary on. But if there's like a black person in your fantasy world, why is there fantasy racism?
Mhm.
Why is there
But
fantasy homophobia?
it's
This
like
is
with
not. They did not have the Anglo-Saxon Christian, the fucking WASP morals that our world has so ingrained in our fucking society. Why does it have to exist there too?
But it's like in Young Elites, she kind of mentions and hints at racism and stuff. So it's not like she doesn't talk about it. She just very prominently showed that the world doesn't have to be like that in this book. So it was really nice to read about.
And I think that's so wonderful that she did that in this book, especially because it is supposed to be an alternate reality or a parallel reality to what our world could be.
Mm-hmm. Now, I did want to talk about the clear privilege that is shown throughout this book.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, anytime you do something within the Neuralink, you can earn like experience points and stuff. And like watering a plant is like 2 points and stuff like that. So, the first thing that we experience really with this is that Amika gets on the personal plane of Hideo Tanaka and gains like 2,000 points, boom, right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime you can go somewhere that's like a really high place or you do something that a lot of rich or famous people can do, you get a ton of freaking points versus like all the other players get like a couple of points for just doing everyday things. And I just want to talk about the unfair privilege that comes along with that.
No, exactly, because while Marie Lu doesn't talk about racism or homophobia in this, even though there are people of color and members of the LGBT community represented in this, class is such a prominent theme, especially the disparity that is so apparent between Amika and Hideo. Because, like you were saying, it is so easy to rack up the points when you're doing rich and famous shit, but it's hard to do it when you're someone like Amika who doesn't have the time or the money to sit there and play all day.
Literally. And the thing that was very clear about that, she talks about being a low-level player, which is partly due to like her hacking her own account and stuff. But as soon as all of this change happens and Hideo's like, hey, you're gonna come to Japan, she gains 3 levels in 2 days by doing literally nothing. Like she's just going about life and she pops up three levels. I'm like, that is not fair to everyone
Yeah.
else. Like that's just insane. The other thing is it has nothing to do with playing the actual game. So with the wild cards and stuff and all of the players, they mention what level they are, but their level doesn't really show any experience towards the games at all. Like it's not playing the game that gets you points that levels you up.
She got like 20,000 XP points just for being an entrant in the war draft.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that, but when she first got to Japan, they explained that the Neuralink was so ingrained in Japanese society that your level might earn you job opportunities over people. It might give you an opportunity for a loan that lower level players wouldn't have, and it might give you better housing as well. And Amika says herself, when she's still in her apartment in New York, she's like, I could be a pro level player. I know that I have the skill to do that, but I don't have the time or the money to sit around and play all day.
Which I think is funny because earlier she was like, I'd probably be at like 100 and some odd level if I had actually let myself not hack my account. I was like, make it make sense.
Yeah, but then also it puts her at an inherent disadvantage with the other wild cards because they're talking about all these levels that she's never played because she's just not high enough level to get there. And I don't know, I feel like
Which
the
again
leveling
makes no sense when the level itself has nothing to do with the actual abilities that you have in the game. But they act like it does. Like when Ash first sees Amika and talks to her, he's like, I knew, like, even though you're a low level, that I could tell that there was something special about you. Like, I knew that you would be a great pick. And it's like, okay, well, her level has nothing to do with her abilities, clearly, because that's not how they earn points.
Exactly. Like when she won the first world championship match, it was just a game of Warcross. She got like 50,000 XP points and gained 20 levels. She's rocketed up to like level 48. Anyway, I think that the leveling system is such an ingenious way to kind of represent that class and wealth disparity that is so present. And I just, that's a hot take.
It's a hot take.
That's a hot take, and it's a well-written one, too. Yeah, especially since you get XP in Warcross for not even playing the game.
Yeah, they talked about a level like 89 player walking down the street or something, and everyone was like fawning over her. And it's like, okay, well, Amika in literally like a month's time jumped to like level 80.
Because she was doing all these rich and famous things. If
She was. But it shows that level 80 isn't actually that hard, like that high of a level. You know what I'm saying? If you can jump that quickly, even if you're doing the high and rich and mighty stuff, that means there's players doing the high and rich and mighty stuff every single day that are a hell of a lot higher than that level, you know? It wasn't very consistent.
I think that everyone on the Phoenix Riders, though, was like level 90. Kind of like up there. Yeah. Oh, I have a note. I have a thing that I love that Marie Lu does.
Oh, okay.
She has this wonderful way of doing world building. And something that I love that she does in Warcross is that she bookends the books with newspaper articles that are written as if they were within the world themselves. And it's kind of like, it's a little tongue-in-cheek, it's a little funny, because Wildcard opens up with like the report of all the suicides, and it ends with the news article about Amika taking the CEO opportunity from Henka Games, and also her leaving a restaurant holding hands with Hideo. So it's like, not only did she graduate to CEO, she's also still pursuing this relationship with him. And it kind of gives you a glimpse into life before and life after. Kind of gives you that closure through kind of this third-party lens. But it starts with a very interesting tone setter. It's an article on Hideo Tanaka, and at the bottom of the article there's a correction about how they mistakenly described him as a millionaire, but he's actually a billionaire. So I think it's like, oh shit, so this is the kind of world that we're entering into, where capitalism is rampant. I don't know, I love world building shit like that. I think it's entertaining and it's fun.
It's very entertaining. Well, and it invests you into the world a lot more. Because it begins to feel more realistic that way.
It's like, oh, here are the news outlets. And I think that's so cool. I like how this book turned the trope of, like, never meet your heroes on its head, almost.
She really
Because,
said, actually, I still love him even a little more.
right? Because it was like, don't meet your heroes because they're not quite what you think, but also you should meet your heroes.
To be fair, though, the first little bit of meeting him, she reacted that way, where it was like, okay, he's not what I thought. And then it grew to her understanding him more and his reactions and being like, no, he is what I thought. We're good.
she's like, this isn't what I thought, but I'm not mad about it.
Right. But see, like a lot of people, when they meet their heroes, it's like a one-off instance. And
Mm-hmm.
so if that had been the case for her, she would have been the same way, where she's like, he sucked. Maybe not that
Mm-hmm.
much, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, because they're very sassy together.
They're
They're
so
very
sassy.
witty.
They're cute.
They're cute together. They're cute and sarcastic. I like them.
Ooh, I have a good question.
Mm-hmm.
If you played one of the parts in Warcross, which part would you play in the game?
Okay, so the positions are captain, thief, shield, fighter, architect, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Architect is so cool.
It is.
I'd want to play architect.
Okay,
I'd probably be shit at it, but I'd want to be architect.
I totally did not understand what architect was when they first explained it. Because
Mm-hmm.
when they talked about like you literally manipulate the landscape to like help your team out, I was like, oh well, this is like a game and like coding, so you just like actually change the world itself. Like if there's not maybe a bridge here, you just insert a bridge magically.
Mm-hmm.
and then and then she goes into the first game and she's like, I got some dynamite. And I was like, oh, this is like Minecraft. Got it.
She's like, I got some dynamite, I got a rope. Which is so interesting how Warcraft drew on that aspect of manipulating the environment around you, how a lot of Battle Royale games are doing nowadays. Because Marie Lu herself, I think, said that the game Warcross was inspired by League, in part, League of Legends.
Mhm.
Her acknowledgement section is very cute at the end of the first book. It says this one's for the gamer girls. Which I think is cute. I think that's very kind and sweet.
That is so cute.
But
so if Legend is in the same like universe, just more futuristic of Warcross, do they feature the Neuralink?
yes, actually, the entire continent of Antarctica is now inhabited, like by people, and the Neuralink is kind of confined to Antarctica.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And so like June Icarus, from the protagonist from Legend, goes there and she like puts on the glasses. They don't do the contact lenses anymore. They're like, we learned our lesson from that. Or did they do the It's been a minute since I've read Legend, but yeah, they use the Neuralink technology in Antarctica. In
Interesting.
Legend.
I wonder what happened. It makes me want to read Legend because I wonder what happened that caused it to go from worldwide to just Antarctica. You know?
Well, obviously Hideo's little misstep was probably
Right.
part of it.
Well, yeah, but they also like took it. They were still taking it to another level, like with Amika coming in as the CEO.
Right, like they rebuilt it. I think there was like a global scale disaster and global warming got really bad in Legend, and that's why everything is the way that it is in Legend, and the country like fractures in two. But we're not talking about Legend. We can talk
Anyway,
about Legend
yes.
later.
I was just curious.
I think it's so interesting how she's like kind of established this universe with the publication of Warcross, where it's like, okay, Warcross is kind of the beginning, Legend is kind of the end, question mark. But there's this huge stretch of time in between them. And I'm wondering if she's ever going to put anything in the middle. Because to me, if you liked and if you read and loved Legend, Warcross would be the logical next step.
Mm-hmm.
Same author, same universe, ancestors from one of the main characters. Yep. It has everything.
I know I talked about the pacing of the book. How did you feel about the pacing of the book?
For me, first book, wonderful. I would like blink and read half the book. I think I got through a big chunk of it. Not a big chunk. It felt like a big chunk because later that night I went home and read more, but I had like a 30-minute break at work, ate it up. And then I went home that night, ate it up. I was like halfway done with the book in my first sitting, which was like kind of a lot because I worked 8 hours that day. But then with Warcross, it really felt like I'd blink and then half the book would be gone. But with Wildcard, it was a little more difficult for me. I struggled with the pacing of Wildcard a little bit. Because I feel like with Warcross, part of what made it go by so fast is that it was very linear in terms of you could see exactly where it was going to go in terms of the structure of the championship games. Because it was like, okay, you're going to train, then you're going to play the first game, then you're going to play the second game, then you're going to play the third game, and then you're going to play the finals. and then the bad shit's gonna happen in between. But the championships are gonna progress no matter what. But wild card was really a wild card, if you will, because you couldn't tell what was gonna happen next at any given time. So I feel like while that's not a bad thing, it made it, and this also isn't a bad thing, of course, it made it feel like it was a lot longer than it actually was. Because I think wild card actually is a few pages shorter than Warcross.
Mm-hmm.
Overall, very enjoyable reads, super good pacing, and pretty easy too. They each clock in at, I think, a little under 100,000 words. I think they're like 95,000, 97,000, somewhere
That's
in that
pretty
ballpark.
good.
Yeah, so it's quick read if that's kind of a little snack for you as a reader.
a little reading snack. Just take a little nibble and then
A little, you know.
Don't actually bite the book. We do not condone that.
I mean, if you buy it.
No. Me sitting here with the library copy, and you're just like, just bite it. It's fine. I don't think they'd like that. If you could have the same story from another character's point of view, who would you like it to be from?
I would like to see Asher Wing. I'd like to know more about him, not only because he's Day's ancestor, of course, from legend, but also because he was kind of the captain of the Phoenix Riders, but he also kind of took the back seat. I feel like Hammy was really the one who was in your face about everything, which is like not a bad thing. I love Hammy. Loved Hammy's character. But I feel like we ended up not knowing a whole lot about him. Because at the end of Wildcard, of course, we get like that segment where Zero gets into their minds in the Warcross game and they have these flashbacks of significant moments in their lives. And Asher had a lot of trauma going on, but he never really talked about any of it.
No, he was definitely one of the least focused characters for that. Besides, I think Ren, maybe, because they don't tell much about Ren's background either.
Ren's like a DJ, and that's like his whole personality, which I think is so funny.
Literally, but the question is, like, my question with Ren is, like, how did he come into being a Warcross player if he's doing all the DJing, and, like, how did he get in touch with, like, Zero, and why is he working, all those questions kind of thing. But I agree, Asher has, like, very little that, like, you actually hear about with his backstory.
And he's, like, a well-rounded character because he's the captain. He cares deeply about his team. He cares deeply about the game. But I feel I would have liked to have seen, or at least gotten a little bit more insight to his family, because we get a sense of that for Hammy and Roshan, and even Tremaine, we get a sense of what his family's like. We get like a little bit of that from Asher with his relationship with his brother, who is a famous stunt double, but I just would have liked to have seen a little bit more, because I think he's a wonderful character. Also, he and Hammy get together, which is cute. They're cute.
They were a very cute couple.
This series is just full of good couples. Cute, good couples. No complaints here. Roshan and Tremaine getting back together. Mwah. Hammy and Asher getting together. Mwah. Hideo and Amika not quite ever breaking up, but still ending up together. Mwah. You know? Okay, even Jackson and Sasuke kind of got together in the end, because she would be in prison talking to him over the phone, because he's still Data at the end of the book. He kind of just dissolves into the universe, but he's still around.
I mean, he was dead, like he wasn't coming back, but yeah.
Yeah, like his body is gone, but he still exists in the cloud, you know?
Eternal
he's,
boyfriend.
Like, on the phone. He's in the eternal boyfriend.
How sad is it though that like you can never cuddle your boyfriend or like kiss him or anything? Like he's just Data. I mean, I guess she could in the game though, maybe.
When he's not daddy, he's Data.
You can leave now. Get out.
Okay, this has been okay. No, because that's another reason why I kind of want her to continue writing books in this timeline that she's established, because I'm assuming that Sasuke doesn't really go anywhere. He's just there forever as long as the internet exists.
That was the whole point of why they created him.
But it's sad because Jax and everyone that he knows and loves is going to grow old and die, and he's just going to be there.
Yeah, I mean, he probably could erase his own data if he wanted to. Does that mean that he is in Legend then?
I don't recall him ever being mentioned in Legend.
But technically he would still be in it.
He's around.
You may not see him, but
unless something happened to him between, I think there's like, Legend takes place in like 21 something. So like 100 years in the future, give or take. So something could have happened to him, but I don't know, I guess he's around. Why don't we judge the book by its cover? What'd you think about it?
I think it gives literally nothing to like the idea of the story. Yeah, so I did think all of the colors that are on Warcross, like the front cover, it's got like a rainbow in a different order, kind of an idea to it. I was instantly drawn by that. I was like, that looks cool. I would never have guessed anything about the book from that cover, but
Absolutely.
I
It's very
did
much
want to
yes,
read it.
queen.
I did
Yes,
want to
queen,
read
give
it
us
because of
nothing.
the cover, because it looked good. Wild card though, if I saw Wild Card's cover, I would not be like, yeah, let me pick that up. There's nothing. It gives me nothing.
Yes, queen, give us nothing. Okay, for me, I'm gonna give my own perspective on this.
Go
When
for it.
this book first came out, I don't know, however many years ago. I think I was still in high school when this book came out, and of course she's on my auto buy list, so I had it for a very long time before I started reading it, and then Wildcard came out and I bought it, and then I read them both back to back. For the longest time, this sat on my shelf, and it gave me very much dollar store book section vibes.
Yes.
And that's not a bad thing because there are some
But it's
wonderful
that like
books
kind
at the
of
dollar
like
store.
plain white cover that
Mm-hmm.
does it. And then there's just like a very simple graphic on the front with the Warcross like
I love the
square.
spine. The spine is gorgeous. Look
Oh,
at
this
that.
one's very pretty.
Yeah, it looks nice on my shelf, but the front cover is very much dollar store book section vibes. It's an aesthetic choice that doesn't really give away a whole lot about the book. But I'm on vacation right now with my family, and I was reading this for the podcast with them, and I don't even think they knew anything about this book. They didn't even know what anyone else had said about it. And they would all point at the cover and go, Ready Player One. And I'm like, it's not Ready Player One. Without fail, they were like, Ready Player One. And I'm like, who is telling you to say this? Who is giving you money to say this? Because it's not Ready Player One.
Okay,
Is
but
it kind of similar? Yes. If you liked Ready Player One, you'd probably like this a whole lot.
literally,
But
because when I was reading through the first book, I was like, wow, the Ready Player One vibes are here.
so yeah, you heard it here first, folks. If you liked Ready Player One, read Warcross. Very similar vibes.
Different style, same vibes.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that like gamer universe sort of thing and the big competition. So
A big game.
I would okay. I'm still mad about the fact that she did not get to continue the game, and we never get to see the end of the championship.
I know. We never got that final game because the Neuralink got disbanded for being mind controlling.
They literally put her in there and they said, we need you to be in this championship. And then they said, actually, we're going to take you right back out. And then they said, but we're going to put you in for this last little bit, but actually, you don't get to do anything at all. Rude.
Right? I just want one more Warcross game.
I know. It was my favorite part.
I just want to see Amika play.
She's really good at it, and it's really interesting to see the way her mind like adapts to the scenarios around her to be able to provide a win for her group.
Mm-hmm. She's smart. What can you
She's
say?
so smart.
There is something that I'd like to bring up. How well do you think that this book represented like the real life act of hacking? Because I feel like there's very much this thing that a lot of films do where it's like on the keyboard and it's like I'm in kind of thing. And I feel like this book kind of gave out that energy, but it's kind of hard not to when you are in this virtual reality world and in real life you're kind of like doing your own thing in front of your keyboard or whatever. Because I liked the way, I don't know, half the time I forgot that they were sitting in front of a keyboard and not walking around and stuff, because the way that the Neuralink functions, of course, it gives you like these fantastical worlds that happen all while you're just sitting down, but you can still like hack and stuff while you're doing it. So I think it's interesting that you have that dual consciousness aspect, because something like Sword Art Online, to keep making analogies to different pieces of media, once you were in the game, you were like, good night, you know, but in this it's you exist in both spheres of being at the same time, which I think would be a lot to process and if it was happening to me.
No, I think it's more realistic because it's basically the same sort of idea as like playing an Xbox or a PlayStation. Even if you have the virtual reality headsets we have now, you are aware that your body is doing one thing and you're playing the game as another, but your mind focuses towards the game that's being played and your body just does the actions that you need to play it. I think you would be aware like subconsciously that your body is sitting and doing its own thing, but you're so invested into the game itself that you're not going to really think about that too much.
Mm-hmm. No, I see what you mean. Yeah, I think that some of the language that was used just kind of made me giggle a little. And like, I need to activate a hack. I'm like, that definitely sounds like something an early 2000s hacker movie would have. Like
Yeah,
a line.
I think there were parts of it that were a little bit more accurate with the hacking, and there were parts that weren't. Like most of it was like preset hacks that they just had to activate. so
Mm-hmm.
the like timing for that was a little more realistic, but it just killed me. She like never talked about protection for her own character or herself other than when she was in her anonymous state.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like hacking into all these things, and then she's like, wow, how did they get into my account?
Well, she has it when she goes into the dark world.
I
She
get
does
that.
talk
I
about
get that.
that.
But like Zero got into her. I mean, obviously Zero is insanely skilled, but like they got into her account super easy. And she's like, wow, I put it behind all of these shields. And it's like, when? Like you've literally done nothing to save yourself from this. That's not even inaccurate. There's a lot that's right, there's a lot that's wrong. I liked the idea that they could see the code that was happening in the game and they could just kind of pull it out and quickly replace it, but that's
Mm-hmm.
also kind of unrealistic.
Yeah, I like
It
that visually. I just don't know how realistically that would work.
it takes so much more time than that.
Right? And it portrays hacking as very exciting, but really you're just kind of like sitting behind a computer, which I guess like you are, but how that would translate to the game itself is also kind of like, okay, you have to like be willing to suspend that disbelief.
You
I
like
think
that.
that where her research really shone through was also in the types of encryption, because she's like, oh, this is a blockchain encryption. This is I can't remember, a fractal encryption, I believe it was, where it just like infinitely repeats and puts up new walls as you try and get in it, so you're never gonna get. I thought that really came across as like more well researched instead of just like I'm in. You know?
I also did like the fact that they talked about the fact that data never really goes away, because that is such a realistic thing that if you have a little piece of it and you can manage to build it back up, it's doable.
Mm-hmm.
I liked that they implemented that.
All right, it is time
It's
for
time for the ratings.
ratings.
What would you rate this book, Chloe?
I would rate this a 4.5 out of 5, hands down.
Oh.
You're not gonna roast me
Oh.
for doing 5s or 10s this week?
No,
Yeah?
I don't
You're
roast you
gonna
on
let.
fives. I only roast you on tens. Get with the
Don't tempt
program.
me. I'd give this book 4.5, 4.75 out of 5. It definitely scratches an itch, and the characters are so beautiful and well rounded. I love, 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 love character driven stories, and I think that this is a shining star example of it. But something about the second book just kind of like didn't quite scratch the itch the first book did.
Facts. I'm telling you,
So
they needed more Warcross games. She should have
I'm
stayed
sure
in the
that
championship.
that's a valid criticism. I wish the first book was definitely better than the second book. Not that the second book was bad. The second book was
There was just
also
less
good.
intense excitement, you know?
It felt less like the first book, and I feel like.
Warcross games, that's all I'm saying.
But yeah, that's where it loses points for me. Otherwise, everything phenomenal. Would recommend this book to anybody, especially if you like Legend or Ready Player One. And what would you rate this book, Honor?
I am going to rate it overall a 4.75 out of 5. With the first book being rated a 5 out of 5 and the second book being rated a 4.5 out of 5. I
Was that
loved
our
the
first 5
first
out of
book.
5?
It was my first.
But the first 5 out of 5 for the podcast.
Oh yeah, it was.
Oh my god, a perfect 5 stars?
I'm telling you, I liked that book.
It had so good.
I know I saw the plot twist coming, but it did it so nicely that I was like, yes. And then
It
I
felt
was
vindicating.
It felt vindicating. And I was so invested through the whole parts. And literally the only reason the second book lost it is because there were no Warcross games. Like, proper one. I'm mad.
Fair enough.
I'm mad.
Excellent.
5 out of 5.
All right.
I would also recommend it to anyone. I think this is a great book. I would highly recommend it to middle and high school age because I think they would just absolutely adore this. Yeah.
Okay, and then like one last note on like the smutty scenes in relation to like middle school and high school. It's not like super smutty,
They're not
which is like
smutty
something
at
that
all.
does.
We've talked about this.
Exactly.
It's
no,
not
exactly,
smut.
it's like...
That's a very different thing.
Okay, well, in the steamy scenes.
There you go.
With a note on the steamy scenes in relation to middle school and high school, it's like just vague enough for it to be appropriate for that age group. So yeah, I recommend this to someone in middle school or high school. I think it's fine. It's more explicit than Divergent, not as explicit as ACOTAR.
We both know that middle schoolers have read way worse.
I mean, you're right, but I would like do this. I would recommend this publicly to middle schoolers. So anyway,
that was funny.
All right. If you liked this podcast, follow us on social media. We have an Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, all with the handle @YoungAdultAdultReviews. Reviews. Post a lot of good book content.
Go ahead and give us a follow and a like. We will be happy to have you there.
And you can also drop suggestions in the comments. We might listen and we might not.
Thank you for listening to our podcast, and that is a wrap.
That was a good one.
That was a really good one.
Wait, I'm gonna try.
Uh-huh. That was a good one too.
Okay.